This one was a little bit difficult to determine. I was looking for another team to talk about in regards to a potential wild card spot in the NFC. We already did the Cowboys because that's very obviously a team that is going to be hot to trot for a wild card spot, I think. At this point, that's the only thing we can assume anyway. So then I was looking at the NFC South. You have three teams that are playing pretty well so far. They have winning records, they have 3 wins. So, which one were we going to talk about? Maybe we talk about more than one, but looking at those three teams, they've all got 3 wins. I decided to push the Saints out because I really do think that, barring injury, the Saints will win the division. I think the Saints are going to win the division and they're not going to be competing for a wild card spot. So, I could end up getting that wrong, but I feel like the Saints are the best team as long as they have Carr and a relatively healthy lineup. So, that's not really the team I'm thinking about here. You also had the Buccaneers. So the Falcons and Buccaneers were the team that I could talk about here. And arguably I need to talk about both, but I was trying to figure out who am I going to lead with. I think we're going to lead with the Falcons because I think they are a bigger threat to get a wild card spot. And there's a very simple reason why, which we'll get to later in this video. But the Atlanta Falcons, bad offense, pretty good defense, plus relatively easy schedule so far equals 3-2 record. And it's one of those teams that is kind of frustrating because it feels like they're leaving a lot on the table, but their foundation is actually really solid, so they still win games. So, of course, what I'm talking about when I say that is Desmond Ridder doesn't look like he's it. Desmond Ridder just doesn't look like the guy. Through 5 games plus what he did last year, he's just very eh. He played well against Houston this week, I guess, but overall, there's just not a lot there that I like. He doesn't seem like he's an NFL quarterback at times. Takes a fair few sacks. He's got a little bit of mobility, but it's nothing that's going to break the game wide open. And overall, I feel like the Desmond Ridder thing is not going to last much longer. I feel like Atlanta's going to be in the market for another quarterback. Because of that, because largely Desmond Ridder is not very good, they have two super talented guys on that offense that don't get used as much as they should. Kyle Pitts and Drake London. Both guys are obviously really good, and both guys are currently on pace to have like 650, 700 yards when they should probably have like 1,300 yards because this quarterback just isn't getting it done. So that's kind of the thing that is frustrating. This offense is bad, and it would, and even a decent quarterback, it feels like, would have them at least a little bit above average. But this whole thing is being held up by two things, really. They've got Bijan, who has been awesome so far, one of the best rookies in the league. He's in the Rookie of the Year hunt. I don't think he's going to win it, but he's in the hunt. He may end up having a 1,200, 1,300 rushing yard season, plus whatever he gets receiving could be another 500. So he's a monster. He's probably going to average about 100 yards from scrimmage this season. Should be right around there. And their offensive line. They have one of the best offensive lines in the league. So to all young quarterbacks who are entering the draft next year, this is where you want to end up, I think. You go to Atlanta, you get to play behind this really good offensive line. You get to hand the ball off to Bijan and Algier. You get to throw the ball to Kyle Pitts and Drake London. There's something very special brewing here in Atlanta for whatever quarterback Atlanta lands. So, because of Bijan and because that offensive line is so good, and if you go to PFF, you can see the offensive line has good scores pretty much across the board. Bergeron's like the weak point, but this is as steady and as solid and reliable an offensive line as you will find. And Bijan's just chewing them up and spitting them out right now, averaging almost 5.5 yards a carry. He's got awesome hands. He's the full package. He truly is. But that offense, it's probably going to be just enough for them to at least keep things competitive. Like, it's not a good offense. Don't get me wrong. 27th in the league. But because they have that stable foundation, I kind of get the sense that they're going to find a way to at least hang around in most games they play. And then they get you to the defensive side of the ball for the Atlanta Falcons, where they made a great signing in the offseason with Jesse Bates. They brought in the big expensive safety. He's been awesome for them so far. They've still got Grady Jarrett. They've got Onyemata, who I think they signed from the Saints. A.J. Terrell's a good cornerback. And you can see all these pieces starting to add up to something good. Remember, Ebiketie hasn't even broken out yet. So if he breaks out, watch out. So they've got really good cornerbacks here in Atlanta. They picked Okudah off the Lions. He's been good for them. A.J. Terrell's one of the better young corners in the league. Like I said, Jesse Bates has played at an all-pro level so far. They've got a good tandem on that defensive line. It's a very respectable, put-together team because they're finding ways to kind of keep steady even with a bad quarterback by putting just enough stuff around him and building a defense mostly through free agency. A lot of these guys they didn't draft. So it seems to me that Atlanta is a little too good on defense and a little too solid foundationally on offense for them to just fall off. They can have bad games, of course. There's going to be a game where Ritter turns the ball over 4 times and they lose. There's going to be a game where the defense just gets beat deep a few times and they lose. Jesse Bates really does a good job cleaning that stuff up. He's their free safety, so it's hard for them to get beat deep, but it's going to happen. But I think it's going to be really hard for this team to just completely get knocked off the cliff because the foundation is built solidly. And I really like what this Atlanta team is doing for the future. But if we're talking about the here and the now with the Atlanta Falcons, I'm concerned for one simple reason. And this is the thing I alluded to back when I started this video. Their schedule is tissue paper. Let's go through it here. They've got Washington, who they're currently at kind of their low point, right? They're not a terrible team, but they're not a good team for sure. And they're kind of at a low point right now. That's a team that Atlanta kind of, I think, matches up well against to beat. They got Tampa Bay twice. I know Tampa Bay's off to a good start, but that's a game. I think both those Tampa Bay games right now, you would say, can go either way. Tennessee doesn't look too hot right now. Tennessee, things are not going terribly well there. Minnesota's off to a bad start this year. They got the Cardinals. One of their most important games of the year is after their bye week. They get a bye week, week 11, and then they play the Saints at home. That's a game where, like, okay, they go into it and they think, well, the Saints are better, but we're coming off the bye week. We're at home. If we steal this game, now we actually have a chance at the division, but we're going to be looking really good for a wild card. And then they get the Jets with Zach Wilson or whoever it is they have starting at quarterback by then. Carolina, they still get another game against, and Carolina is going to struggle to win any games this year. The Colts, who knows what the Colts are going to be at this point. Anthony Richardson might get hurt again. The Bears. Like, this is such a soft schedule that I think that the Falcons, as much as they are not a great team, you start doing the math in your head and you're like, it's not going to be hard for this team to get to 10 wins just by existing and not being incompetent. All right, so that's really what I had to say. That's really all I got about the Falcons. They're not a team that I watch that frequently, so I'm not going to have as much to say about them. But yeah, this schedule plus their foundational competency equals a potential playoff team. I like their young players. I like their rookie class. I like what they're building, and I think it might be good enough to get in now as a wild card. So you're going to be competing with them at the end of the year in all likelihood for a playoff spot. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks. I'm going to do at least one more video like this, I think. See y'all.